You're having fun with Godot, and at some point you realize, like all of us have, that hey, this engine doesn't really have structs. And that might be a problem for you. So let's talk about the two main alternatives that we have here to fill in not having any structs. Let's make a quick little script. We'll make this just, I don't know, inherit of node 2D, because I've got a 2D scene open here. Doesn't really matter. And we'll call this for now example. If you're working with C#, you can just make C# structs. Downside there being is that you can't expose those to the editor, and they don't serialize into things like save data. So they become essentially useless really quickly. Now, instead of making a struct, what we can do is we rely on dictionaries instead. Either that or a second option that we'll get to in a moment. So we'll make a var, call that something like not struct. We're going to make that of type dictionary. And then if we add these curly brackets, we can add in the information for our struct here. Oh, well, not a struct, it is a dictionary. A dictionary is just a container, a collection that's going to take in one type of data and supply back out another type of data. With dictionaries that you pre-fill, you can mix and match which types of data those are. For replacing a struct, what we usually end up doing is something like a string going in. Let's call that health. And we'll set that by default to a value of 100. Oh, you do need to have an equal sign there to actually assign in these values. And then we can have something like mana, which would be a default value of 10. And stamina, which would be a default value of also 10. Adding in a comma after every single one of these lines to separate them. Well, not for the last one, obviously. And now we've got a single variable that contains a health, a mana, and a stamina value. And in this case, they're all integers. We could make them floats if we prefer, but we can also add in maybe something a little bit more complicated, like is dead. And we can give that a value of false. And now we can see that we more or less have a struct. We have 3 integers and a bool. The downside to this is because this is just a dictionary, there's no guardrails on what type of data are in here. What type of data are the keys, which are the things here on the left-hand side. What type of data are the values, which is the right-hand side. You can mix and match those. We can even take in something like 100 and return true. I don't know what this would mean, but we can do that. We can mix and match any sort of data here that we want. We can take our not struct dictionary, and with these little square brackets, we can give in any of these key values, and that's going to give us back the value on the right-hand side here. So we can try to get health this way, make sure that we have it capitalized properly, and this will return the value of 100. We can also set these values, of course, and we do that with our struct and then dot get or add, and there we can give in our key, which is a variant, so it can be anything we want. In this case, that'll be health, and then the second parameter will be the value that we set that to. Let's set it to 150. That's going to overwrite the already existing health in here with the new value. This type of stuff is useful when you have one-off collections of information. Something that would usually be a local struct, essentially. Because if you're passing around a dictionary could contain anything. It's not particularly clear from a programming standpoint what this contains. And you can make a dictionary specifically typed to mitigate that a little bit. So we can add in these little angle brackets, and we can give in the 2 types that we want. We can say that this is a dictionary with a string and integer. If we then remove these 2 values, my bad, in C# it is angle brackets, it's square brackets in GD scripts. This gives it a type, but now we're only going to be limited to being able to supply in strings and ints. So we can't mix and match different types of data anymore. So while this is a little bit more guarded against telling you what you should be expecting in and out, it also now has lost a bunch of the flexibility. And for that, we go to what is the generally much better replacement for structs, and that is resources. And just to be clear, you can still very much export this, and it will become editable in editor. We'll look at that in a moment once we've done the resource. So we do a new script again. And this time we're going to inherit that off of the resource type. And a resource is pretty much a if you're familiar with Unity, it's a scriptable object. If you're familiar with Unreal Engine, it is a data asset. It's just the type of asset that you can make your own custom assets, resources, whatever you want to call it, with. So we'll call this example resource. You can add functions into this, so it goes a little bit beyond just being a collection of data, which makes it a lot more powerful in some regards. Because let's say that this is an item resource. We can have a var value, which is an integer, set up by default equal to 0. And of course, pretty much everything in here we're going to want to export. And we can have the next export variable, which will be a var string for the name of this thing. Don't need semicolons, that's just muscle memory for me. Sorry about that. Icon, which is going to be a texture 2D. And now we've got a struct that contains a couple of different pieces of information that we can fill in per resource. And as I said, we can also make functions. So we can make a function for, let's say, get value. And that'll take in a percentage, which is going to be a float. And it will return, let's say, an integer. And that'll then return a float value of our, well, value divided by our percent. So it's not just holding variables, it's also entirely capable of holding functions. This is a whole object to itself. If we go back to my example GD script here, we can make a new export variable here. And we can make that a variable, let's call it item, and that's going to be of type our example resource. And as you can see, it doesn't show up in the IntelliSense because we don't mark it yet as a global class. So if we go back in here, we can say it as a global class by just giving it a class underscore name. And let's call this item resource or something like that. Now that this is a named class, we can go back here and we can see if I look for item resource, well, once this one is saved, that is. So we just save that. It shows up as IntelliSense. So we can make an item resource and we have both the dictionary and the item resource now exposed. So if we go back into just our 2D scene, let's add a simple 2D child node, and that's going to have our example script on it. We can see that that example script has our not struct and our item both exposed to it. Not struct already is kind of pre-filled with the health, mana, and stamina. We can add in more new keys to it. So that's also a really powerful part about the dictionary that is good for things like stats. If a specific character has a specific unique stat to it, maybe this one has something like anger, we can give it a unique anger value. If we go over to the item, we can either populate this with a resource that exists as part of our assets in our project, so we can make a new resource. And if we make an item resource, which is possible because we named the class, we can just call that something like new item for now. Double clicking that, we can see that we can give this the values. So it's maybe worth 50 gold, it's a sword, and its icon, well, I only have the Godot icon for now, so that's going to be its icon. On our scripts, we can either just give it that asset now as a value, that works. And the wonderful thing about that is because it is now a asset, it is centralized. So if this new item is referenced in 100 different scenes or 100 different scripts and nodes, changing it in this one place will change the data for it all over the place. Very nice, very central. Again, scriptable objects, data assets, maybe you're familiar with them already. You also, however, can make a new item resource that is specific to this field. And if you then click on it, you can still fill them out with a value. Let's say this is 40. This is a shield, and well, I don't have other icons, but you get the point. And now we're populating this more or less as if it was a struct in any other engine that you might be familiar with. Couple of little caveats here. This still is an object, which on one hand is quite interesting because we can make inheritances off of this as well, which actually is kind of interesting. But also in our scripts, usually in a programming language, a struct is passed through by value, which means that if you pass it into a function as a parameter, it actually copies over the value. And if you do anything to it in that function, your original struct is going to be fine. It doesn't get touched. Objects get passed through by reference. So if you pass this into a function and that function does something to this resource, it's actually going to change the resource itself. Something that wouldn't happen usually with a struct. instead of using getStat and then immediately putting in our item itself, which would put in a reference to this item, it's a little tricky to do that. We would want to pass in a copy. So we do item.duplicate. This just makes a copy of that resource and passes that in instead. It's just a little bit more safe to be sure that you don't accidentally end up editing any information about this if you don't want it to, if you're used to structs being passed through by value. And while this gives a good alternative, I do still think that actually having structs would be valuable because of the whole passing things through by value instead of by reference. Personally, I don't think this is the ideal solution. I think just having support for structs would be so much nicer, but you gotta deal with what you have. And if you want to support this type of content and get access to all the project files for all of my tutorials, you can become a member here on YouTube or a Patreon. And thanks to my Cave students, tier supporters, Oigu and Earl Monseval Urno, and my Cave Digger tier supporters, Classy Crustaceo, the Joshimator, Mauricio Farias, and Cheng the Dude.